Hey everybody, spoilers for all things Star Wars, so fair warning. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Script Department. My name is John. I'm joined today by Brad to discuss episode 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Before we get into all that, be sure to check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net, for all the latest stuff that our global network of screenwriters get up to. Hit us up on social media. Links are in the description. We're on TikTok as well, so make sure to follow us there for daily content. And finally, if you haven't already, do subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for The Script Department. Brad, things are getting a bit hot under the collar for Obi-Wan this week.
Literally.
That's the best introduction I could possibly come up with on short notice. Really good episode, I thought. But I also had some reservations that I feel like I may need more time with in order to kind of make sense of. And kind of rationalize in my own head. We'll kind of get to those points. But a really interesting episode. So we start off this week. They've arrived on what looks like Arizona or West Texas. And they are making their way through the desert. Doing the whole kind of, okay, leave the talking to me, Leia, all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, Vader is, all decked out now, ready to go, ready to hunt down Kenobi after Obi-Wan gets the blame for the Grand Inquisitor's death, which I think we all saw coming. Reva is really proving herself like really worthy of a kind of a Sith apprentice role. Actually, she's
angry. She's very angry,
and she's really devious. And like, I would be really concerned for my well-being if I was another Inquisitor at that table. Because she will step over everybody at this point, and it's really interesting. So then Leia manages to talk their way onto getting a lift from a kind of a truck driver in the area, and then all hell breaks loose. Stormtroopers chasing them. They get rescued then by a rebel leader called Tala, or a local rebel in the area called Tala, played by Indira Varma.
Mm-hmm.
And she takes them on what has become known as the Path, which is, I guess, the Jedi equivalent of the Underground Railroad, I guess. It's this kind of smuggling Jedi to safety elsewhere, from planet to planet, I guess. This kind of series of connecting bridges, let's say, from planet to planet, ports that will take them to safety. People are leaving their names carving their names and their messages on the walls for others to see. And it's really, hope is alive here for some of these Jedi that we have yet to meet. And then before they can escape, Vader comes down to the planet and does his thing, which we will get into. I had a lot of fun with the episode, but I also felt like some of this was a little bit repetitive. More of, hey, let me do the talking, Leia. Leia does a lot of the talking, remember you're my daughter if anybody asks, like reiterating the cover story and the kind of stuff that we got from the latter half. It's very much an episode where it's almost like they're trying to avoid capture, and then the climax of the episode is a shootout or a conflict of some sort where they barely escape, like episode 2. But I didn't have a problem with it. I really enjoyed the whole experience. How did you feel with this episode? Was it yeah?
I loved it. I thought it was great. Again, I think I spoke to you just before this, and I was saying I find myself trying to pick holes in it because I'm almost surprised at how good it is. Like, I'm really, really enjoying it. How we get Vader at the start, and you called that last week. You said, right, we're going to open straight on Vader. I think we get one beat on Obi-Wan meditating, and then it's straight into Vader. And to see him with his arms, he's off. He's got no limbs, and we know that. We know he's got no limbs anyway. But to see him living without them, it added a new level for me. Like, and you're seeing all the plugs going into his body, some of them quite deep, and it's like, okay, this is not a nice existence. Like, he is not having a great time here, and he's very powerful and very mad, and I think it makes him maybe the scariest he's ever seemed. Like, he was pretty scary in Rogue One. Like, he was terrifying in Rogue One, the way that they presented him. And I think they've gone with that. Like, he is terrifying. Like, dragging people down the street on their face and snapping young boys' necks in front of the whole family. Like, he's like a horror of a man. Like, he's barely even a man anymore. But yeah,
He was like a ninja in Rogue One. You know, these are the enemy, and I'm gonna have fun killing them, right? But this felt like the closest Star Wars has ever gotten to like Game of Thrones or something like that. It felt like it was genuine evil. Like, this isn't just a well-trained soldier doing his job, killing rebels or whatever. This is an evil man. And I think it's the first time I've really seen Darth Vader as evil rather than just powerful.
Yeah, he had a the Mountain quality to him somewhere.
Yes,
that he was just slaughtering these defenseless people just to show his power, just to terrify them into submitting to what is going on here. And Obi-Wan was terrified as well. One, because Anakin's back and he's guilty about what he did. And two, because he's a monster. He's seen him kill the younglings already. And Yoda was saying, you'll only find pain here. And he watched those shots of him. And now he's seeing him as this awful thing that he created on a level. And he says that. He's like, I am how you created me, or something like that. So there's all these different levels of conflict going on within their relationship, even before they've seen it, like met properly, if that, or met again. And I loved all that. I thought the Leia performance gets better and better. I mean, I wouldn't give it too many points for realism. That I don't know how old she is, 9 or 10-year-old girl has that much, or boy has that much emotional intelligence. But the performance is just amazing. Like, she's so good. She does a great Carrie Fisher impression, and she brings so much emotion to the role for someone so young.
And as Marcus said last week as well, she brings Padme to the table as well.
Yes.
And it's really, I wasn't thinking about Padme until he mentioned, you remind me of an old friend, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's so, it's there in spades, and it's so powerful. On the subject of Leia, I really enjoyed what I'm calling the truck driver scene, where they're in the back of this hover truck, let's say, and they get this seemingly lovely character, I think played by Zach Braff.
It was Zach Braff. Freck.
Yeah, so you got Freck, this lovable, seemingly lovable truck driver. Hey guys, where are you off to? Do you need a lift? That kind of thing. And Leia, kind of just charms her way onto the back of the truck. And Obi-Wan is sitting there in the bus. And as he's getting onto the back, he sees this kind of crude handmade Empire kind of a flag. And you're thinking, oh no. But then you're also, part of me was thinking, maybe this is just Freck trying to get the Empire off his back, something like that. I don't know, and you're kind of holding out hope that maybe this isn't going to go, upside down. And then a bunch of stormtroopers hitch a ride, which I thought was really funny. And I was convinced Obi-Wan was going to do, she's not the girl you're looking for. and an homage to A New Hope. And it didn't happen. But what we did get was a much better piece of writing, which was this lovely fake backstory. Her mother died recently. We're going to see where we met first, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just this really lovely little moment. And they're able, and there's, you can tell he's imagining Padme when he's saying this.
Yeah.
And so there's an element of real love here underpinning all of this, BS, really, in order to kind of get the stormtroopers off their back. And then the stormtroopers leave. And I just found that a really lovely scene. And it's then punctuated at the end by the fact that, of course, Freck has turned on them and has been against them the whole time. He says to one of the stormtroopers at the gate, at a checkpoint, he says, I brought 2 people for you to check out. And you know what I thought at that moment? I was reminded of films like, and I want to be careful with this comparison because I know this is just a work of fantasy, but I was reminded of films like Schindler's List, or
Yeah.
the pianist, where
Mm.
you've got these people who, obviously in real life as well, had to be smuggled out of their respective cities or towns, had to be, hiding in basements and attics and things like that, and having to lie about who they are, having to tell false stories like this. Also, where are you guys off to? Oh, we're just here, and you've got to make up your stories, and you got to have your cover stories and everything, and you got to have your fake papers and all that, if you want to survive. But also, it's the constant fear that the person will betray you. That you really, like, how much can you really trust anybody who's even if they're helping you, even if they are, really trying to help you, there's got to be that part of you that's going to have that doubt. Like, I hope they don't turn me in. I hope somebody doesn't, put pressure on them and then they turn me in. And this is one of those moments where, I don't know, maybe it's a credit to the writing, but it really helped. It drew parallels for me to a lot of those kind of scenes that you would see in those movies that are obviously grounded in a horrific reality, that just made their struggle very real for me. I don't know, did any of that kind of resonate with you?
So for me, I was really interested in the way they portrayed, because it's relatively early, and it's 10 years into the Empire? And I know they were only around for 20 odd years. It was quite a quick thing that was wiped out quite quickly. But it was, it's barely halfway through that 20 years, and the flags are made by Freck's probably made that flag kind of thing. They're still winding up in a way. They're still coming up to full power, and I don't think everyone really understands who they are yet, because I don't think Freck seemed like a bad guy. So it's almost like he was just doing the bidding of the new government. Do you know? Oh, these guys are in charge now. These are the policemen. These are who I need to report to, and these are the rules. And it's like, it was quite an interesting look at it. And plus how the stormtroopers were with Freck. They're like, hey man, how you doing? Yeah, we just need to get to the next thing. And they came across like regular people. And I know they've done that at times with how they approach the members of the Empire, but it really felt different. It felt like, oh yeah, like some people might be okay with it, because they're not going to have just rattled into power and just taken over the entire galaxy. Like, they would have been voted for on a certain level. They would have been deceived on a certain level to what, Palpatine was going to do and what his plans were. And then he decided to rule with an iron fist. And as we know from many of the films that we've seen already, a lot of the ideology is we're trying to bring order to bring peace. I don't know if the Emperor believes that, but I kind of believe some of the generals might do on a level, and it feels like there was something of that in there on a social level, and I quite enjoyed that sort of thing that we got to see for the first time.
Well, Freck says, nothing wrong with a bit of order, and it's kind of a you can tell. But again, even in that moment, you're thinking, is he just saying that to kind of just keep them on side, or to stay on side with them? I felt like there was a nastiness to Freck. I felt like there was this underpinning, I don't know, that was just my reading of it, because I think I was drawing parallels with, again, I don't want to labor the comparison, because obviously this is fantasy, but Spielberg, Lucas has made comparisons in the past to the Third Reich and the Nazis and so on, and even the inspiration for some of the, like, Vader's helmet and stuff like that was, I think, inspired by German helmets. Something like that. I think I'm not entirely 100% on that, but there was this kind of, and you can see some parallels to history there, and it's one of the things that I find really fascinating about Revenge of the Sith is the idea of we've now found an enemy. We've created this enemy through propaganda and through lies and deception, and we're turning the people against this other this community in order to unify the people towards something. And you see this a lot throughout history. Is we need
Absolutely,
we
yeah.
need an enemy if we are to be able to legitimize our own power. And I just think they've really touched on that quite effectively in these 3 episodes. And this to me was another really powerful example of that. I don't want to bang drum too much about that scene, but there was something simple about it, and yet something
It's great.
really effective about it. And
It's
yeah,
something we're all, we've seen the evils of, these sort of fascist regimes that gain immense amounts of power and what can happen. And as I was saying, like the empire would have been kind of elected on a level, like they were. We saw it in Return of the Revenge of the Sith. Like there was kind of a quasi election there, and they said, yeah, this guy can run it all, no problems. Those were the senators and representatives of different planets and societies. But Hitler was democratically elected, and initially he was loved. They loved, like, there was a deception that went on, and he wasn't full tilt, like he didn't go full tilt into the grotesqueries that we had towards the end of the Second World War, but he would have had them in mind, without a doubt, and that is reflected here, I think.
and a chancellor as well, I believe.
Yeah,
Again, they're not hiding those
yeah,
comparisons.
yeah,
I,
exactly.
I do. I've said it before. To me, I think the Palpatine's rise to power is brilliant in the prequel trilogy. Never gets enough credit, I think. It is this brilliant long game, like the genius of this character, the evil genius of this character, to be able to think that long ahead, to be able to play that long game, to have such an intricately kind of woven thread of puzzle pieces and schemes and everything in order to just get to power and eradicate the Jedi. And it works. Like, it
Mm.
works. It's not like a great Bond villain or anything like that who ultimately fails. This works. He got everything he wanted, and he just didn't last as long as he'd probably hoped. But that, like, there is something brilliant about it. And I do think Obi-Wan as a show is tapping into all of that really well.
Mm.
So I want to save the discussion of Vader right for when we're talking about the end, like the real, like, the powerhouse scene of this episode. Let's talk about the path. So
Mm.
we've got Indira Varma's character Tala, who initially you think she was an empire kind of a lieutenant or something like that, and when she realized what was going on, she started to turn her back on the empire and start sabotaging from within, and she's been helping smuggle Jedi and Force sensitive children, anybody who's a target of the empire,
Mm.
out of and through this planet to other places. And she brings them to a safe room, which has a tunnel, a secret tunnel, and there's all these inscriptions on the wall. I think Quinlan Vos is a character from Star Wars Legends, maybe, or from Rebels or
I
Clone
think
Wars.
it's Rebels. I think.
Rebels, yeah. And so, and Obi-Wan referenced that Quinlan got out. Oh wow, okay. Or Quinlan's still alive, and so there's a glimmer of hope there in Obi-Wan's eyes. And we're definitely seeing the birth of the rebellion, because when Reva finds the room, she sees a carving on the wall of what will ultimately become the rebellion symbol, right? Am I right? Yeah. What do we? I don't know. Where's that
I
going?
like it. I mean, there's a lot of Route One stuff in there, like that might not necessarily have had to be there. Like, uh, is it Tala saying, you'll be a great leader someday. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, we already know that. We've seen the future, Tala. We know this thing, but, like, they're trying to pay homage to all of the parts that they can do without sort of breaking it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we'll go over some of the potential, whether they're retconning or whether they're ignoring or whether they have a plan for certain lines of dialogue in A New Hope. from Vader, from or not from Leia, and there's plenty that it might affect. I don't know if they've got a plan for that, but it's there are plenty of questions, but there's also 3 episodes to answer them, and plus we might not care by the end of it. I mean, if it carries on the way it is, it's fun, it's terrifying, it's heartrending. Like, there's all of these different emotions that you get from this show, and they are giving us what we want. So when it gets to the end, we might not care about some like minor irregularities that might affect, the canon timeline. But it's I'm enjoying how they're taking new characters and new concepts and trying to fit them in what's already a complicated timeline to work with. It's been written over 45, 50 years, 45 years, I think. And it's just like, yeah, that's going to be complicated not to create plot holes and, loops in the story where you can't get out of them. It's like, oh yeah, but what if they said this, that they meant that? And, there's lots of, from a writing point of view, I think there are lots of eggshells to be stepping on while you're putting the narrative together. But I think the path's really interesting. I like the fact that Leia and Obi-Wan have had a relationship before A New Hope, and maybe it works. I mean, there's a certain ambiguity to her relationship with him in A New Hope. You get the impression there isn't one. But she doesn't say, I've never met this guy before, but it just feels very formal in the way that she asks for his help. And
I was saying that to Marcus last week. There's a moment in A New Hope when Luke says, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue, I'm with Obi-Wan Kenobi, or something like that. And she says, Obi-Wan Kenobi? And that's the thing that makes her light up. Now, she doesn't know who Luke is, and she doesn't know who any of these other heroes are. But so the mention of Obi-Wan Kenobi will inspire some, oh, wow, somebody got my message. Okay, great. But you could also maybe read into it now, in hindsight, after watching this, that it's, my old friend. Like I haven't seen him in years, that kind of thing. So there's also a part of me that feels like this show will end, and forgive me if I end up predicting the future accidentally here and ruining some stuff, but I feel like Obi-Wan kind of has to fake his death by the end of this show. Because you've got to have somebody like Grand Moff Tarkin in A New Hope say, Obi-Wan Kenobi, are you serious? No, he's long gone. No, you are the last. You're the last. You're the last of their kind, my friend. You've got to have that line make some sort of sense. But also, I think it would be really interesting if there's like a moment where she learns, no, Obi-Wan is still alive, and he might be, he might be able to help you, or something. I don't know. I feel like later in life you could do a show with, I really hope at some point they do a kind of teenage Leia thing with this actor where she can realize, oh, he's still alive. Okay, I don't know. Yeah.
I think the way they're handling at the moment is gentle enough for it to get through, as long as it doesn't go too far. Do you know what I mean? I think they could. I think they might be able to massage it into the canon and get it to work. Well, the one thing I don't want to happen is like, and you will not remember me at all. At the end, I don't want there to be like a Jedi mind wipe. But I think they need to work a bit harder than that. But they've worked pretty hard so far. I mean, I know Reva's hot. People are hot and cold on Reva, but she's Chekhov's Padawan at the beginning, right? She's one of the Padawans in Order 66, and she's mad about it. But we don't. I'm not sure about this, but I don't think Obi-Wan's seen her up close yet. I don't think he's seen her face up close yet. He's seen her at a distance when she was with Owen. I mean, maybe don't fully quote me on this, but I don't think he's fully seen her face yet, and I think they know each other because she knows him, and she does not like him, and almost certainly she was a Padawan in the Jedi Temple when it was sacked and everyone got killed. But she survived either by handing herself over or escaping, and then decided she wanted to be part of the Empire at a later date through rage. But I think he knows. I think they know each other quite well, or will there'll be a moment where it'll be like, oh, I know you, like when they're finally face to face. But I'm quite interested to see what happens with it.
Well, what you just said there, the idea that she hands herself over. I know, my assumption is that she was just captured and, let's say converted to the dark side. But I love that idea that she's like, she knows in that moment, like, I got to do what I got to do to survive, and I'll get my revenge down the line. I don't know, something like that.
Well, the thing is, they've got Hayden Christensen back, and you don't necessarily. He's a great Vader. He does it well, but you don't necessarily need him to be Vader, right? You could have any guy of a certain height to be Vader, but he's, they've used his face a little bit again. It's not definitely Hayden Christensen. Of course it is. You can see from looking at it, but you could make someone up in a similar way and it would work, right? So we've seen him once at a distance in a cloak in a vision, right? I think, to your point, we probably will see something. We've already seen Order 66 twice or once, is it? We've seen that. So why would we not see him there? They need some Hayden. They need some Anakin rather than some Vader somewhere along here, because it feels like a big star to get back to keeping a helmet. But then I guess Mandalorian. Like, you rarely see his face. But he's a good actor. And I think James Earl Jones's voice is still amazing.
Amazing. They got him back. He's still there. Yeah, that's amazing.
Still amazing. I thought he sounded slightly older in Rogue One when we reviewed that, but it doesn't feel like that here. It feels as strong as ever. It's like, oh yes, this is Vader, and it's Vader in his prime. Like Vader is Vader for 22 years or 21 years or however long it is, and this middle bit is his absolute prime. He's been hobbled since Vader was, born, effectively forged. But he's terrifying. He is strong and angry, and he's in pain. And yeah, I love this Vader. I love the era we're in for Vader.
So let's talk about the Vader scene, all right, or the sequence. So Vader comes into town, dragging everybody along with him, breaking necks and lifting people out of windows and everything. And he is showing real serious power here, kind of power you see in Rogue One, and it is glorious, right? It really is. And then he starts hunting Obi-Wan through these this like quarry.
It's a mine,
a mine quarry kind of area. And there's like these mounds of sand and mounds of crystal or whatever, and he's like, they're kind of navigating in and out of it. And eventually the lightsabers fire up. Obi-Wan's lightsaber just comes on very, there's no standing on ceremony or anything. It's not like it's a slow motion moment, not slow motion moment, but like a kind of a more slowly paced moment. It just pops up, and it's very, you would think, you'd swear he's been using his lightsaber since episode 1, right?
Yeah.
And I like that, because I thought, he's not overthinking this. It's just kind of muscle memory. He's just, powering up. So I really like that. But the thing that and then they're having their duel. Vader is clearly overpowering him, and then he does the fire thing, which is he lights up a bunch of crystals that are flammable or whatever, and there's just this like bed of flames. And he drags Obi-Wan through the flames. And then he extinguishes the flames with the Force, right?
Yeah, well, I don't even know if that's intentional. He throws Obi-Wan, and the Force blows the flames out. So he can put those out, right?
He can put them out. Yeah, I'm getting
them out.
I'm getting to something here, yeah. And then Tala creates a distraction, and the big giant droid that Tala has comes to rescue Obi-Wan. The flames are reignited, this time by Tala, and Vader just stands there and watches Obi-Wan as if he's a million miles away. It's like as if he is powerless to stop him. Okay, what did you think of the scene itself, and how do you feel about the ending? You know, the kind of the escape, so to speak.
So the fight was slightly anticlimactic, not in an entirely bad way. I think this is the moment where you're like, oh, Obi-Wan is old and rusty and scared. Like, he's running, right? We've not seen him really do that in a lightsaber fight battle before. And he's terrified. You can see he's scared, and Jedi aren't scared. They don't get scared. They suppress that. So you can see that he's not really a Jedi anymore. He's sort of lost this connection to the Force that he had previously. Um, I quite liked the idea that he was weak, but I think the last time we saw them fight on Mustafar, it's just the most epic thing ever. So it's just to compare the two. They were both in the dark, and there was a lot of uplighting on them from sabers and things on fire, and there was a relative similarity in the. I know it wasn't a bubbling volcano, but there was a relative similarity in the atmospheric nature to the environment, but it felt quite small. I don't know if there's a budgetary thing going on because they've got to do 6 hours of this amazing show, and it's it felt like there were just piles of slag or coal or whatever it is, and they were just skittering about in them. And that for me, when the first time he ran away and Vader says you can't get away, it kind of diffused it a little bit, because I'm like, oh well, he just got away, and then surely you're just going to pop up somewhere. Oh, there you are. And it felt like it was going through the motion of something I'd seen already. The fight in the coal pit or whatever. It felt almost too familiar. But just watching it as a Star Wars fan, I was glued to it. I was like, oh, here we go. They've both got the lightsabers out, and I was just thoroughly excited. I think on a second watch, I've started trying to analyze it and go, oh, why is it so small? It feels a little bit weird. Like, why isn't Vader going over the fire? If you put it into context, he's been waiting for 10 years to get Obi-Wan, and he's been seething like for 10 years. He's in pain. He lost his whole family. He thinks everyone's dead because of Obi-Wan. He's lost all of his limbs and his skin because of Obi-Wan, and he wants to kill him. So the fact that he didn't just carry on or didn't try harder, like, he was playing with him for a while, right? He didn't just go in and snap his neck. He could have done that, but I can see that he would have wanted to stretch it out. It was like your suffering has only just begun.
Well, the problem I have with it is that, and this is a screenwriting issue, is you have established in, let's say, act one of this fight, let's say, that you can move people with your mind. You can drag people out of windows. You can snap people's necks. We have seen Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian destroying crushing droids like they're cans with his mind. There's no reason, and we see Vader's ability to out the fire, whether it's accidental or intentional. Why is it then that he can't do any of these things, like destroy that droid that's coming to help Obi-Wan, or prevent Obi-Wan, like move Obi-Wan away from the droid? I don't know, even, or just extinguish that. Like, there was a part of me where I thought, okay, there's this glimmer of hope now for Obi-Wan, but Vader is going to walk right through those flames because he's not afraid of the fire anymore. He like, this is the guy who he is because of the flames and the lava and so on. He is not afraid to walk through this fire. And I was imagining maybe his cape will start burning up or something, or even just part the flames like the Red Sea or something. But no, nothing like that. And it just felt. And now you get this iconic shot, by the way, of the flames in his eyes of the helmet, which I think will live on as one of the great visuals of Darth Vader. But I have to believe, and I've been reading some articles since, just to kind of see if anybody has another reading of that scene. And the language that keeps getting used is he lets Obi-Wan escape. Now, these are obviously just interpretations because we don't know yet. Do you think it's possible, or do you think there's credibility to the idea that Obi-Wan is being toyed with further? Like, we've introduced the path. We've introduced that there are rebels out there being helped by this woman Tala and so on. Do you think it's possible that he is seeing that Vader sees a bigger picture here? Like he's going to have his fun with Obi-Wan, but he's also not going to lose sight of what the mission of the Inquisitors is either.
I feel that's possibly the only credible route for this to go, because he does stand there and he does watch them, and it would be so close. I mean, Chow is an incredible director. It would be such a clumsy misstep for Vader to blow the fire out and then to be stuck behind fire that he's blown out. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a misstep. So I would expect that we will find out that he let them go because he wanted to find who was supporting Obi-Wan. He wanted the rebels. He wanted to find, he's on a hunt for the rest of them as well.
To your point about it being a misstep, right? I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think the biggest issue I've had with this entire show so far, and this is such a minor issue, by the way, but I do think it's an issue, is the choreography, or maybe it's to do with the writing, of how people get away has been a nagging issue for me across 3 episodes. We talked about Leia outrunning Flea and Co. in the woods and bumping into branches. Tell me how that's different from Vader just standing there watching Obi-Wan get away. Leia outsmarting Obi-Wan in the city. And even the idea of Obi-Wan just somehow being able to get down from the top of that building to help Leia, who is in, real time kind of just waking up and, or opening her eyes and realizing she's still okay. And then suddenly Obi-Wan's right there. They are taking shortcuts. As amazing as the direction is in most of this, the one criticism I do have, and maybe it's just, because we're trying to make this more younger audience friendly as well, maybe, or something, but it does feel that people are able, even Vader's able to move suspiciously fast when he wants to catch up with Obi-Wan through the quarry. Like there are moments where he's way over there and then he's like right behind Obi-Wan again, So there's just an element of people being able to just get away from the scene, or being able to get into the scene way too quickly, and across all the episodes.
I think there is an interesting thing they're doing with all of the cat and mouse things going on, and there's the reason I don't want it, or I don't think it's a misstep, is because it's not. There were plenty of other ways they could have fixed that. They could have fixed it afterwards. They could have done like ADR. Vader's lips don't move. They could have put just a little line in from going, "Oh, do you know what? This isn't working. We need to say, if it is the fact, they need to say, oh yeah, I'll let him go." He just has to say to a stormtrooper, "Let them go." That's it. That's it. So I want it to be. Yeah, I mentioned realism earlier. They're trying to hit on realism in certain parts, not entirely, because it's not. It isn't. It's not a film that you'd associate with realism. But there are things that they are doing where they're leaving things open to interpretation, where they're they're trying to get away from the space opera aspect of it, although they're still keeping the full theme of it in Star Wars. They're trying to make it grow up in a way.
No, I agree, and I think if there is an explanation in the next episode for if there's a bigger plan in play here, and Vader's just having his fun right now, then I'm totally fine with that, and I hope that's where it's going, because I think that would be really great, actually. But I do feel like right now, if you just look at them out of context, there are 3 kind of sequences, and a key sequence in each episode that has this very suspicious kind of or odd pace of movement, or something like that going on. And so I would like that just a little tighten up. But I think that's my only criticism really of this episode, was that I felt it just a little strange. And even the one of the Inquisitors says, "Oh, we'll never catch him now," and it's.
Yeah,
and I'm
we'll never catch him now. It's like, really? He was right there.
Yeah,
he was right there. What do you mean?
And it is always a case like, either the omission of a line of dialogue or the inclusion of one line of dialogue would fix everything, you know. So, okay, so where do we think this is going to go next?
I hope we get some Qui-Gon soon. Like, it's been long enough of asking for him in a Lord's Prayer kind of way. Give me strength. It's just, he's got to pop up at some point. It's not going to stay on this planet. We're going to go elsewhere. Obi-Wan's going to be taken and plopped in a bacta tank and definitely have some flashbacks. Maybe of Qui-Gon. There's definitely
it wouldn't be a Star Wars TV show if we didn't have bacta tank flashbacks.
Yeah, back to Tank to the Future. I think that's the. But we're going to get some. You know, he's going to heal. He's not going to be straight in a. You know, he needs at least 2 episodes to heal. We can't have him back on top. So I think Leia will be left to her own devices to a point. Maybe she does get captured by Reva. Maybe she's out on her own. We don't know. But I think there's plenty of places they could take it. One thing I did want to say about this that I hope sort of goes away. There was a unusual thing going on with the composition of movement. So both in the coal pit and the tunnel, like sometimes it just didn't make sense that, you know, they ran down the tunnel, Reva entered the tunnel, Tala exited the tunnel without passing Reva, and then Reva was in front of Leia. I know there are other ways, but we need to see them. We need to see that, otherwise the composition doesn't work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the problem I'm talking about when I talk about the kind of the odd pacing is people are able to get where they need to be for the benefit of the next kind of plot point, but it doesn't quite make sense how they got there so quickly or how they got there without issue, you know? So yeah, I totally agree.
And I know, we know why these things happen. There are all these moving parts they're having to push towards in the direction of the plot. So when there's so many of them, and they've been on multiple planets, multiple ships, so many different people, protagonists, antagonists, it's going to happen when there's 6 hours to get through this enormous story. But I hope they, you know, I hope it breathes a bit more. I hope they, you know, they're not, you're rocketing through these environments. Like the fact that the Inquisitor said we're never going to get them. I was like, well, what if you just go over the little hill of coal there? They're just behind that hill of coal. Just go over there. But yeah, I, regardless of that, as I said, I'm trying to find holes in it because I don't just want to gush and go, it's the best thing I've seen in years, but I love it.
That's the thing. I do think it's one of the most enjoyable, cathartic shows I've seen in years. It is. I just love being in front of the TV watching this show. It just is. It is bringing me right back to the love that I had for Attack of the Clones, which is my favorite Star Wars movie, and I will defend that to my last breath. Okay, I'm going to pitch you the next episode. Tell me if I'm on something here. Obi-Wan wakes up in a safe house, surrounded by other people, kind of just living there. People who aren't much, better off than Obi-Wan. And 1 or 2 people going, Master Kenobi, is it you? And you realize this is a safe house for people on the path, let's say. And he's like, where are we? How did you get, who runs this place and all that? And then Ahsoka appears. Yeah. And Ahsoka and Obi-Wan have this really just beautiful one-to-one moment where they are talking about Anakin. And they're having that conversation that they've never gotten to have. About everything that happened 10 years ago. Yes. And Ahsoka can't help because she's got to get these people off world. And look, I got to move on from Anakin. I've got to put him in my rear view. I've got to move forward. So we're not, you're not going to break canon or anything like that too much. But Obi-Wan needs to recuperate a little bit. And then when everyone's gone, Obi-Wan has his dream. Has his vision with Qui-Gon.
Yeah. And
Qui-Gon empowers him, as does Ahsoka, to get back on the horse, go get Leia. Stop running, go get Leia. But we're going to have one little inclusion here, and that is some of the Jedi who are supposed to go off or who are supposed to get on the transport with Ahsoka stay behind and help Obi-Wan.
Nice.
Because
That would be good.
because I don't want to see Jedi cowering for 6 episodes. Because that's what we're getting right now. We're getting Jedi who are being strung up. They're being they're being presented as people who are exhausted, who've given up. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's completely understandable within the context of the story. But remember that great moment, that goosebumps moment you had when you watched Mandalorian and all those other Mandalorians joined in the fight to help him? And it was this great feeling like he's not on his own. I would love to see a moment where, you know what, that Jedi code is an itch that the Grand Inquisitor talked about. And some of them got to go off world because, you know what, like maybe they're just not able to fight anymore. That's okay. But if there are maybe 2 or 3 people, nameless characters, let's say that, you know, you've only just met, and they're quite happy to say, we'll join in the fight to get Leia because it's the right thing to do. And I'm tired of running. And, you know, this is for all the fallen Jedi and so on. You know, a little bit cheesy, but who cares? Then I think you've got a really cool episode then. And you can tie that then into what maybe Vader's plan is, which is, I don't want to kill you, Obi-Wan. I want you to live the rest of your days knowing you led me to the Jedi and you are responsible for their slaughter. Because you failed me and I killed everybody.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm going to kill these 3 people who decided to help you.
There's going to be a lot of psychological stuff going on here and emotional and relationship-based drama. I think he's definitely going to go to some sort of rebel stronghold, and whether it's Ashoka or Quinlan or, you know, it's someone else they want to chuck in there. I know we've got Andor coming up, so, you know, Mon Mothma's, she's in that. She's probably not going to be in this, but Saw Gerrera or, you know, you know, there are people around that are building the Rebel Alliance right now in this world. And I think we're going to get to see some of that. And I think there's going to be a couple of surprises in there where we're like, yes, I can't believe they're there. I didn't think I'd see them. You know, it's not the right way, but they could even bring Chewbacca into it. He's old. He's like 100 and whatever years old in Solo, but there are people they could bring into it. Woody Harrelson's character, you know, are there people around that people liked in these films that are like, hell, we'll get those in here just for a laugh, like just because they could just bring a.
I do think you have to get Ahsoka in, because if you want people to really care, if you want the casual Star Wars fan to care about the Ahsoka series next year, is it Ashoka or Ahsoka? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Ashoka, I think.
Ashoka. If you want to get the Rosario Dawson TV series, people to care about that show, like the casual fan who might not have watched Rebels or Clone Wars, or who might only really who might not be aware that Anakin had an apprentice, you need to keep putting that character out there. And, you know, we were introduced to that character in live action in Mando, appeared again in Book of Boba Fett. Give us one more episode here, and then we're going to be really primed and right. Like, people are going to take notes. This isn't just some character for later on. This character has some real interesting insight into those other characters you really love. You know, and she is portrayed as a sort of therapist almost, you know, for Grogu, for Mando as well in those episodes, and her being some sort of therapist for Obi-Wan in this moment where he really does need to talk about everything that happened. I think it would be really important. Just to say also, we are getting another fight apparently between Vader and Obi-Wan. That Lucasfilm,
without a doubt, I can't see that being it.
No, but I think Lucasfilm have confirmed. I don't want to say that definite, but I've read in the articles, Lucasfilm have confirmed that this is part 1 of a 2-parter. And I'm wondering, will part 2 be the rebalancing of the equation, so to speak, where yeah, you still have a little bit to go, Vader. I
We're
don't know.
we're gonna get a Rocky montage somewhere of Obi-Wan getting his groove back. Like he's gonna be in a back to tank. He's gonna be hanging out with Phantom Qui-Gon, like training, running up mountains. Lifting bags of grain in a barn, all that kind of stuff. Like he's going to be getting back
With the Force.
into with the force, of course. I mean, he's not going to be in physical shape, but it's going to be he's going to be able to fight.
Do you think? Do you think? Sorry, just do you think the burn? If you notice, he's severely burned on his right arm, I think, and at the end of that episode. Do you think that that's just going to go unhealed? Like you said, back to tank. I don't know. That feels too easy, actually. And I'm wondering, we never ever see Obi-Wan like without his cloak in A New Hope. Is it possible that actually he is a severely debilitated person, not just because of age, maybe, but because of horrific injury?
Well, I think we've talked about this before, haven't we? The fight in New Hope. Are they ever going to try and explain why it was so bad? Like a character's hobbled along the way? Are there things that have happened to them that make them slower? And I mean, obviously age, but are there things that have made this happen? So yes, that could be a total thing that happens. But beard and hair and a back to tank, I mean, it's going to look cool. Like, I don't know if they're just going to say, hell, just get him in there. It's going to look amazing. Like he's got a journey to go on, an emotional healing to go through to be able to fight Vader. We know neither of them's going to vanquish the other one, but someone will win the fight. It's happened before without a fatality, and that one of them was severely hobbled. I mean, we don't know. It could go many, many ways, and I like that. I don't like being able to just see. That ruins it for me. I think but Boba Fett was a bit clearer, and although I really enjoyed that show, you could see where it was going, and you didn't. I mean, the two episodes in the middle, I didn't see that coming. I was like, what? But the general narrative of Boba, I could see it. I could feel it. I was familiar with that, and it doesn't feel that's happening here, and I like that. I like that I can't see what's happening.
I was wondering, I just want to talk just one last point about Vader's redemption arc. It's the one thing that has always bothered me in Return of the Jedi, is just how kind of shoehorned in his arc is. There's no evidence at all in A New Hope that he's a redeemable character, or that he's a character that we want to be redeemed. Mm-hmm. There's no evidence either in Empire. It's just aside of a little twist at the end, there's no reason for you to really care what happens to him outside of living or dying, which we all assume he will just die at the end at some point. With Return of the Jedi, Luke is very quickly saying, "Oh, but there's good in him. I can feel it." I'm like, when, where, how, where's the good? And but when I think back about that trilogy, and even Rogue One, I'm not seeing anything that you can't really come back from. He kills, I think, is it Captain Antilles in A New Hope? Mm-hmm. He chokes him, at the beginning. But I'm pretty sure that's the only good guy, so to speak, that he actually kills in that trilogy. Everybody else is either killed by the Empire in general, or killed, or is one of his own men that he kills out of punishment. So
there's Obi-Wan as well, right?
But Obi-Wan, but
although that was a suicide by Vader in a way.
It's kind of not. Yeah, I don't really feel like that's a death. I feel like that's just I won this fight. And but like, it doesn't feel like I've finally beaten him, like, or something. Or that I was, it doesn't feel the same way as kind of like a cold-blooded murder or anything like that. Even if it is, I don't know. So I can understand I can buy into the redemption, even if I feel like it's not the best writing. But that whole redemption arc is slowly becoming less and less credible the more evil you present him to be, because, I mean, we already know he's in canon, through comics and other stories that people are telling about Vader in the stories, in the movies and so on, that he is a horrific character. But you don't really see it. And even in Rogue One, he's kind of just a soldier doing his job, he's killing the enemy who are trying to kill him, so to speak. but he breaks a kid's neck in this, right? I'm not like you described it,
Yeah.
you know. And,
And he seems to enjoy it as well. He does not seem
this is
like a redeemable human.
Yeah. Do you feel that we need to touch on a corner of Vader that might not be totally lost in the next 3 episodes in order to keep that kind of important aspect of the original trilogy alive?
We are going to have a level of character development with Vader that will allow that, I think. I think there is going to be something that will happen, a conversation, a vision, or something that shows us even through all of the awful, horrible things he's done, there is a redeemable something inside of him. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's going to be a weird thing if he just butchers people, tries to kill Kenobi, and Kenobi escapes and goes to Tatooine, and that's the end. It would feel, hang on a minute, like what's going on here? Like this is because then there's another 10 years of Vader being Vader, so it is going to be a difficult thing to write into, I think. But I have faith in what they've done. So looking at what they've done so far, I have faith in them. They're trying to keep canon.
Yeah,
they're trying to keep canon. Like, you could potentially suggest that it fits at this point. You could be like, oh yeah, well, Leia was 9. Maybe she didn't remember him, or maybe she only just remembers him, or it is explainable. It's not like no, because he got an arm missing in that, and he's got 2 in that. There isn't anything really clear that's sort of like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. You could kind of, I don't want to have to explain it away, but you can explain it away.
All right, imagine. I'm really not serious here when I say this because I know I'll get crucified for it. Imagine Obi-Wan kind of gets a jab in with the lightsaber and slices his arm off, and there's blood everywhere, and then you're like, that's not Anakin, and the real Anakin is just like, that man is an imposter. And they're still good. Oh, thank God, they're still good in him.
It could be a ruse all along.
No, it's not. It's not a ruse. I don't really believe that.
Gee, Jimmy Smits is pretty tall. He could be in that.
I can see the subscriptions just dropping like mad here. I don't know. I do feel as I have been for this episode as well. I was just so excited to see where this goes next. Ahsoka, no Ahsoka, I don't care. This is like just real old school Star Wars that happens to look a bit like the prequels, and I just think it's the best of everything for me as a Star Wars fan. And yeah, more of this Vader, please. I don't care if it ties into Return of the Jedi or not. But the screenwriter in me is really curious to see how much they care even about joining those dots. I am a believer that, you know what, if we get some of the greatest Star Wars television over the next few years at the expense of 1 or 2 films that, are loved, is it worth it? I think maybe, and so but that's one of the biggest active questions in my mind right now is, how is this puzzle piece taking shape so that it will align with A New Hope or whatever is coming before it, in order, to create that, that cohesive story. And it's just compelling television, really.
I can't imagine the writers would have sat down, whether they were together or doing it individually. I can't imagine any of them wouldn't have discussed the lore and, the puzzle piece they're creating constantly. Like, it would have surely been the core of, whatever, the anchor of all of the ideas they've come up with. It's like, well, no, we can't really do that because this happens in the future. We know what happens in the future. And I think it would have been an interesting room to be in to write this story, like the untold story of one of the best known characters in cinema history. You know what I mean? And it's, yeah, I too, as a writer, I just want to know where it goes. I'm really intrigued to see how they do this.
And I definitely feel I'm going to enjoy this whole package more the second time I watch it. I've already watched the first 2 episodes twice, and I'll watch this one again. I think I'm going to be watching everything twice as it goes. But I definitely can't wait to just binge the whole thing over one weekend or over a day even, and just just have that kind of gluttonous experience with it, and just take it all in and just love it, and not have to worry about where it's going or how it fits or anything like that. Just, I always enjoy video games the second time around. I always enjoy big movie events like that the second time around, because a lot of the bigger questions that I might have are just gone, by the time I get to the end. Listen, thanks very much, Brad. This was a really good chat. We'll be back next week for episode 4. We're now at the halfway mark, and it doesn't feel like it because we got 2 episodes up front. Some people have said, the Vader fight came suddenly, but it didn't really, because it's the halfway mark, and it made sense, actually, didn't it? But yeah, so I can't wait to see what comes next. Keep it here to find out what we think of episode 4 next week. Check us out on social media. Hit the links in the description. Visit our website, thescriptdepartment.net, and subscribe to our podcast so that you get notified as soon as the episode drops.